Hey everyone, and welcome back to the series where I make a granny square using the Granny Square Stitches card deck. Every week throughout the year there's 50 cards, so over 50 weeks we will make all 50. So we are up to week number 11, and it is this one. This is the Baby Blocks stitch. Looks a little bit like teeny tiny little granny squares, like granny stitches I mean. And we need 3 colors. Let's do that first before we look at the chart. So I have got my Anthem yarn. I have got dark denim, coral, and peach pink. I thought that would be fun. All right, let's look at our chart. So first things first, we need to see what our starting chain needs to be. So for this square, it is 14, and then we're gonna follow the chart working in 1 row stripes of yarns A through C. That's my 3 colors until square. And then we're going to do our single crochet edging like we've been doing, and that you can find in the booklet. This is the booklet on pages 22 and 23. Last week I forgot to mention what the pattern repeat was for that particular block. So here, just you look over to the side here, and that's where you find that information. And this one, it just says your starting chain needs to be any even number. Pretty easy. Okay, so looking at the chart, once we have our starting chain, we are going to put a single crochet in the second chain from the hook. Then we're going to put 2 single crochets in the next chain, skip a chain, and repeat all the way down. We'll have a single crochet in the last stitch, and we will change color as well. So let's see what that looks like. Get everything all set up. I'm going to start with my dark color. I kind of like on their square how the dark color is on the outside, so let's try and emulate that. I'm going to start with a slip knot on my hook. And then we are going to chain 14. Just like in previous squares, I'm going to take a look after I've chained 14 and see how the square is comparing with some of my others, because I'm trying to keep them all a consistent size. I don't want to make another small one like our week 2 one. So let's see what 14 chains and then the second row looks like. So 1, 2, 3, 13 and 14. If you will recall, I like to work into my back bumps when I'm working back down my chain. So I just turn my chain over so I can see those bumps. I'm going to skip this first bump, and I'm going to work into the next one, and I'm going to work that single crochet. So I'm going to insert my hook into that bump and pull through a loop. 2 loops on my hook. I'm going to yarn over and pull through those 2 loops. Now, if you are still having trouble identifying the first and last stitches of your rows, use a stitch marker. So just put a stitch marker into that very first stitch you just made, and when you come back down the row, on like for row 2, it will tell you where your last stitch is. Okay, so looking at the chart, I've got my single crochet in the first stitch. I need 2 single crochets in my next stitch. So I come to my next bump, insert into it, and make my first single crochet. And then I'm going to go right back into that same chain for my second single crochet. I'm going to chain 1. I'm going to skip over the next chain, and then in the next chain we're going to repeat. We're going to put 2 single crochets. Now I'm going to chain 1 again, skip a chain, and put 2 single crochets in the next chain. And I'm just going to repeat this all the way down my chain. So this is my second to last chain. I'm going to put my 2 single crochets in it. I don't chain one after that repeat. And in my last chain, that's when I'm going to change color. Now I'm just going to pop a single crochet in there without changing color, just because I want to sort of measure this. So I'm just going to pull up. If I ever have to remove my hook in the middle of making a square, I just pull up a big loop like that, and then I can, then I know I won't lose that stitch. So I just want to see, that was last week's square. Okay, we are on target, so I can continue. I don't have to go back and figure out the stitch repeat. Okay, so I'm going to pull out that last stitch because I need to change color in this stitch. So to change color on a single crochet, you enter into the stitch and draw up a loop. Now I'm going to drop my blue, and my next color is going to be the coral. So I'm just going to take the end of my coral, lay it on my hook, and draw that through. And then I can chain one with my new color and turn my work. And now let's look at what the chart tells us to do. So I'm here, I have chained one. So now I'm going to single crochet into that very first stitch, and then I'm going to chain one. I'm going to skip over those 2 single crochets from the row below, and in the chain one space, I'm going to put 2 single crochets. Chain one, skip over the 2 single crochets, put 2 single crochets in the chain one space. That's my stitch repeat. So I'm going to do that all the way to the end, and I'm going to end with a single crochet in my last stitch. That's where my stitch marker is. I'll change color, and then we can tackle row 3 together. So let's, oops, I need my coral, not my blue. So we're going to start with a single crochet in that first stitch. I'm just going to pull my ends here, get them all sort of neatly tucked away there. And I will put a stitch marker in that first stitch. Now I'm going to chain one. I'm skipping over these 2 single crochets, and I'm finding that chain one space. And then in that chain one space, I am going to put 2 single crochets. I'm going to chain one to skip over the next 2 single crochets, find that space, and put 2 single crochets in there. And just repeat that all the way down the row. And I need to chain one to skip over these last 2 single crochets, and then I'm going to put a single crochet in that last stitch. So that's where my stitch marker is. So I'm just going to pull my stitch marker out. I'm going to start my single crochet. So I'm going to insert my hook and pull up a loop. And now is the time to pull in my third color. So I'm just going to lay that over my hook and pull that through. Chain one, turn my work, and then let's look at row 3 now together. So I'm right here, I've chained one. So I'm going to single crochet in the first stitch, and then into the chain one space, which is right after the first single crochet, I'm going to put 2 single crochets. So that's our repeat pattern. Anytime there's a chain one space, we're going to put 2 single crochets, and then we chain one to skip over and reach the next chain one space. So we're just going to do that back and forth, changing color with each row. So let's do this row together. So I need to put a single crochet in that first stitch, and again I'm just going to take that time to pull on all these ends, make sure everything's nice and tight there, and then I can replace my stitch marker. I'm going to chain, nope, I'm not going to chain one. I am going to put 2 single crochets in this chain 1 space. Now I'm going to chain 1, hop over these 2 single crochets, find my next space and put 2 single crochets in there. Chain 1, hop, 2 single crochets. I'm at my last chain 1 space, so I'm going to put 2 single crochets into this chain 1 space, take out my stitch marker, insert my hook and pull up a loop. I can drop my peach and my blue is waiting for me, which is the brilliance of using 3 colors in a 1 row repeat. Your next color is always waiting for you. So I can pull up that blue and pull it through my the loops on my hook to complete that stitch. Chain 1, we're going to start with a single crochet. I'm just going to tug on my tails there. And now I've got 2 single crochets right in front of me, so I know I need to chain 1 and hop over them and find that chain 1 space, because the only time I'm stitching into a stitch is the first and last stitch of the rows where we single crochet. Otherwise, we are just looking for our chain 1 spaces, and we are single crocheting in each chain 1 space, 2 single crochets in each chain 1 space. And that's it. So I'm at the end now. I put my 2 single crochets in there. I'm going to chain 1, hop over these, take out my stitch marker, and I can change color in my final single crochet. Chain 1, single crochet, replace my stitch marker. So that is the repeat pattern for this entire thing. You're just going to keep doing that row by row. You're only putting your single crochets into the spaces, and that's what's giving you this lovely little, these little clusters, this cluster effect. And you're going to do this until it's square. So in theirs, they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 rows. I will see how many I get. And when it's square, I will come back and we'll work the border together. See you then. My project is now square. So I take my trick of folding the bottom right corner up to the top left. And if all of my edges line up neatly, then I know I'm square. That for me was 18 rows. So basically 6 repeats of the pattern. But that is the beauty of a project like this. You just kind of work within your own tension until you make it square, and then you move on to the border. So I haven't done my final color change, and I'm going to do that back to my dark blue. So I'm going to have a dark blue border, which means I can cut off my coral. Get that out of the way. The hardest part of this project, honestly, was managing all your yarn ends and the balls and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to put my first single crochet in of my border, and then I can cut off my peach. Now, before I start my border, I am going to do what I did last week, which was sew in all my ends before I get started. So let me do that, and then we'll tackle the border. Okay, all my ends are woven in, which just makes the process of working my border a little bit easier. It's easier to see everything when you don't have all these like ends hanging around. Okay, let's talk about where we're going to put stitches, because if I put a stitch in every stitch and chain space, I'm going to have more stitches than I started with my chain. So we chained 14 and then we worked into the second chain from the hook, which if we were working just a row of single crochet would have meant we had 13 single crochets. So I don't want to put a stitch in every stitch and chain space because that would leave me too many. So I've already got one in, I've got one single crochet in the top of that first stitch, which is a single crochet. So if we count, so I've got a chain space, that's two single crochets, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. That's too many stitches. So this is what we're going to do. I've got one in my first stitch, that's fine. I'm going to put one in this first chain one space, and then I'm going to skip chain one spaces until I get to the end. So I'm going to put one there. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to skip that one. 5, 6, skip that one. 7, 8, skip that one. 9, 10, skip that one. 11, 12, 13, 14. Is it more than if I had done just a row of single crochet at the bottom and had 13? Yes, but it will prevent my square from doing this sort of a thing because I have too many stitches. So let's look at what that looks like. So I've got one in my first stitch. I'm going to put one in this chain one space, and then one in each of the next 2 single crochets. I'm going to skip this chain one space and go right into the next 2 single crochets for 2 stitches there. Skip that chain one space, single crochet in each of the next 2 stitches, skip the chain one space, single crochet in each of the next 2, skip the chain one space, single crochet in each of the next 2, and now I'm going to single crochet in that last chain one space, and then I can make my corner. So my corner is always a single crochet, a chain one, and then right back into that same space for another single crochet. And if you need to mark your chain one, get your stitch marker in there and mark that. So now going down the side, because I have 18 rows, if I put a single crochet at the end of each row, I would again have too many stitches. So I'm going to have to fudge things a little bit, and I want to have about 15 or 16 stitches that will equal my other squares. So I've already got one there. I'm going, that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'm at 8. I'm about halfway through. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and then I'm just going to hop right down to the bottom. 16. That should be pretty good. Now I'm at the corner, so I've got one single crochet in there. I'm going to chain one. I'm going to put a second single crochet in there. Again, if you need to mark that chain one space, get your stitch marker in there and mark it. Okay, so now along the bottom, because we've added a couple stitches up here, a stitch up here, I want to make sure that I have the same number down there. Otherwise, I won't have a square. It'll be some sort of rhombus. So in my corners, I am going to add, I'm going to add one more stitch in that corner space. and then I can stitch into each chain and chain 1 space, and then I'll just mimic that on the other side. So I'm here at my last stitch. So I'm going to put, oopsies, I'm going to put 2 single crochets in there. I'm going to chain 1 and then put 1 more single crochet in there. And then I can mark that chain 1, and that should give me approximately the same number of stitches along the bottom as I have along the top. And now I just need to do my 16 along the side, go 1 more time around, and our square is done. And that's me back to the beginning. We do a chain 1, and we can slip stitch to our first stitch, chain 1, and then just kind of repeat. But this time we're just putting a single crochet in each stitch, and then into our chain 1 corner spaces we are putting a single crochet, chain 1, single crochet. I am finished, so I can cut off my yarn. I have done my last chain 1, so now all that's left is for me to do the invisible join to fasten off. So I cut my yarn, I pull it out, I thread it onto a needle, and then I'm going to come over, I'm going to skip that first stitch of the round, I'm going to go into the second stitch from front to back, come back down through my chain and down the back, and then I'm just going to sort of tug that until it mimics the stitches next to it, and then I can weave this and fasten this off. So I'm going to come down, and then I'm going to go back up the way, not exactly in the same channel, and I'm going to grab some different pieces of yarn as I go up and thread my needle through. And then I'm going to go one last time back down, again not in exactly the same channel, not that far off from it though, and then I can cut my yarn and our square is done. So that is the baby block stitch for week 11. Next week we're going to be tackling this one, which is blocks and V's. So basically combining a granny stitch with the V stitch from last week. That'll be fun. I will see you then. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.